John Terrett, CGTN, outside the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, let's further break down the GameStop phenomenon with Thomas Hayes, joining me now from New York. Thomas is the founder and chairman of Great Hill Capital, a private equity firm. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here, Rochelle.
So everyone's been watching all of this sort of play out, but not everyone is familiar with all the jargon. So in layman's terms, explain what's going on and why it matters.
Well, in simple terms, Rochelle, this is a story about Main Street outsmarted Wall Street. And effectively what you had was hedge funds were short 140% of the shares outstanding. They were short more shares than were actually in existence. And a bunch of retail traders on this Reddit platform figured out if we just bought the stock, we could push the price higher and force these hedge funds into what they call a short squeeze, where they'd have to buy back the stock to meet margin calls, but there would be no stock because we would own all of it. So that was the idea. The problem was the retail traders didn't have enough money to push up the stock, so they bought call options, right to purchase the stock, a way to get leverage on a lot of shares for a little money. The problem with that is the dealers and the people who sold them these call options have to hedge out that short option position, and they do so by buying more stock. So as the stock price went up, the dealers had to buy more stock to hedge their position. The retail traders on this board bought more options, which required the dealers to buy more stock. And guess what? All those hedge funds, 140% short, were trying to cover to meet their margin calls, and there was no stock for sale. So the stock just exploded. We've seen the stock go from $5 to almost $500. And then today they shut off the spigots. Groups like Robinhood, Interactive Brokers said, we're not going to allow you to buy. There was a huge revolt from these retail traders. They're finally making a lot of money, and their toys are taken away. And it looks like tonight, Robinhood said they're going to reopen the buying, and GameStop is back up 70% after hours.
I mean, this has really been an incredible cycle. I mean, a lot of these Reddit investors claim, look, they're using the same strategy as these hedge funds. So what's similar and what's different?
Yeah, so they basically outsmarted the hedge funds is what happened. I mean, any hedge fund with risk management and I manage money, so I know this game. To be in a stock that's 140% short interest, you have to be worried and you have to manage that risk. And many of these big names actually didn't, and the retail investors sniffed it out, took advantage of it, and they've made spoils. I mean, you saw some of the posts, Rochelle. There were posters that turned $50,000 of options into $22 million while the hedge funds were losing hundreds of millions, and one large name needed a $2 billion bailout from other funds just to stay in the game.
So then explain how platforms like Robinhood and other investing apps really play into this phenomenon.
Well, it's certainly frictionless. So, no commission anymore. You can do it right from your cell phone. There's a lot of talk, all these people. There are 3 million retail traders on this Reddit board alone and millions more on Robinhood. So they all kind of seem to plow into these same stocks. And when you have a bunch of short sellers in it, they can now take advantage by driving the price up. So, I think this is going to shake out in that regulators will have to limit the amount of shares outstanding that anyone can short at any one time. So there's not this, tremendous squeeze that drives the price up. I think they should also consider reinstating the uptick rule that was in place from the Great Depression. After the Great Depression, it started in 1938 to 2007. They lifted that, which required short sellers. They couldn't short the stock until the price ticked up, so you don't get those cascading falls in the stock when you see it collapse. And that would be healthy for the market. And lastly, you can't allow the Robinhood traders to get into the game and start making money and then shut off the spigots like they did today. That was genuinely unfair. I think it's going to be resolved tomorrow based on what the CEO of Robinhood was saying tonight, and let the market play it out, and let the retail players win if they've outsmarted the hedge funds in this particular instance.
And just very quickly, we know that there are a couple of other companies they're looking at, BlackBerry potentially. I mean, are these high stock prices good for the companies themselves? Does GameStop want this high stock price in this manner?
Probably not. Now, a few of them have, questionable finances. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. So some of them will use the appreciated stock price to issue new shares, to sell new shares, to raise capital in the market. And that could actually save their businesses from going under, and the ones that are in a precarious situation. So if they use it right and they issue shares while the stock price is up, that could be a very low-cost form of financing for the companies and save a lot of jobs. The risk for these retail traders, though, is just like they squeeze the hedge funds on the way up, be sure to take some profits off the table, because when it starts to come down and that buying power from the dealers it runs out, what you're going to see is it could fall just as quickly as it rose. So if you're in profits on this, take some off the table. And, like they say, bulls make money, bears make money, but pigs get slaughtered. So be careful out there, because as quickly as it goes up, it can come down. The fundamental value on the street, if you look at the fundamentals of GameStop, the highest price target is $30 a share. So there's a structural thing at play here, and you have to be very careful. But it is nice to see the little guy won on this one.
It really is, though, isn't it? Thank you so much. Thomas Hayes there, founder and chairman of Great Hill Capital.